Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel, and today we have another portrait drawing tutorial slash draw with me, whatever you want to call it. I feel like I'm always doing like portrait art videos because that's just what I like to draw most of the time, but today it's going to be digital coloring specifically. Now, I'm not an expert, but I have learned a couple things in the past week or two that I really want to share with you guys, so let's get into the video. Starting off, I have this old portrait. Well, it really isn't old at the time I was filming this. It was really only like a few days old, but I really wanted to color it, so I decided to use it for this video. Like I was saying, I got this old sketch that I wanted to draw just because I like the way it looked. So to start off, I just put down a purple base because all the colors are going to pretty much have... The plan was to pretty much have all these purples in one portrait. I don't think I necessarily did that, but it did end up looking nice regardless. So starting off with the jacket, I'm not that good with clothing yet when it comes to digital art, so I try to keep it as simple as possible. We have a dark, we have a light, and then we have a mid-tone. Pretty common theme in art. So the first thing that I do obviously is put down, I want to say, I think this is the mid-tone color. No, I think this is the darkest color. Yes, this is the darkest color, and then I go in over top of it with the lightest color. And I think I kept it even more simple and just did dark and light instead of like 3 colors. I just did a dark color then a light color. But if I was going to put another color, it would be lighter, and that would be where the light is actually hitting the clothes. Now, the original image is kind of muted. The jacket itself is kind of muted, so I did end up making it a bit more bluish purple when it came to the hoodie, just because I like the way that looked better against her skin in the end. I kept the shapes a bit more simple just because I was really worried about the face here, but obviously they can become as complicated as you would like them to. It's really just your choice. I then softened the edges, and come to find out, I did use another color. So I did actually end up using 3 colors. I used the dark color, a mid-tone, and then another color on top, which is the lightest color. And if I remember correctly, this is just a desaturated version of that like mid-tone color. Next is the face, and the thing that really helped this look so well was basically using the eyedropper tool. I personally am just working on my painting skills right now, not necessarily my color theory or my color learning skills. So what I basically did was use the eyedrop tool, drop the color, and just, I want to say I dragged the hue more to like a purplish color or a bluish color, just to give it the effect that I wanted on her face. And the reason why I say you should use the eyedropper tool is because yes, you can learn multiple things at one time, but if you learn a bunch of things at different times and bring them all together in the end, I think you'll be just fine. Sorry about that. So the first thing I did was I took the darkest color of her face, and then I just laid that down over the entire sketch. Then this is pretty much how I approach a lot of my rendering here lately when it comes to color, and I'm just blocking in all of the colors no matter what. Even if it's the highlights, shadows, blush, whatever, I'm just putting it down on the face first. I wanted to approach this portrait in the same way that I approached my portrait from my last video, and not necessarily over render it, but just kind of get the idea down about the lighting and the shadows based on the colors that I had. And like I've said before, I think it's fine if art takes a while. I think that's the beauty of it. But for this drawing, specifically for this portrait, I didn't want it to take long. So that's why I immediately started with blocking out the colors, which I think is super important when you are painting, drawing, whether it's traditional or digital. For the lips, I think the only color that I dropped with the color dropper tool was the top lip, and then the bottom lip, I just made I was just making a lighter version of the top lip really, and just kind of picking it from what I saw just to practice a little bit. And then I did the same thing with the highlights for the lips. I also kept them pretty simple, as you can see here. I didn't use any crazy lines or texture or anything like that. I just wanted it to be split up between lights and then darks. Now when it came to the blush of the face, I was a bit confused on how to do it. Like, I knew there were blush around her eyes and there was blush on her cheeks, but I didn't want it to look weird. So I just kind of kept laying down the color, taking a lighter version, laying it on top, and that was basically my entire rendering process. And the best way I could explain that is just wherever the two colors meet, that's the color you take and you just blend with that. Now sometimes it's going to be impossible if you're not using a brush with a lower opacity, but my brush specifically had a low opacity, so they kind of blended themselves together. And what I was doing there was pretty much just like testing out if I wanted it to be smooth or not, and I didn't like it. I just don't like the look of like super smooth art. I think it looks nice, but I don't like doing it, I guess is the better thing to say. I don't really like doing it. I think it just looks weird when I do it, so I just haven't gotten comfortable with doing it yet. But I think it looks nice when I see other artists attempt it. Not attempted, that sounds very hateful. When I see other artists do it, I think it looks nice. So something I always do is make the canvas super small, as you saw there, just to check the values. And in doing that, I immediately realized like how terrible my values were, because here it looks amazing, but I used the color dropper tool, you know what I mean, or the eyedropper tool, so obviously it's going to look amazing. But I just thought about all my other portraits and how they just were so meh, because the values were just trash. But I'm opening my eyes, I'm becoming a better artist, and that's what it's about. I've recently been wanting to stylize more, so as you can see, I made her eyes a bit bigger, added like, you know, the super chunky highlights, and kind of added a different shape to her eyebrows, just to kind of give it a more cartoon look. Not that realism is bad or anything, but I just want my art to be a bit more distinct, and I find that in stylization you find that, and having a distinct style comes across more. Now thinking back on it, if I did have to do something better, maybe add some subsurface scattering. I don't think it's necessarily needed though. Like, subsurface scattering isn't everywhere. I think it happens depending on what the lighting is, and here I maybe could have added it a little bit, but honestly I think it looks fine without it. The darkest color of the face I actually ended up using for the hair, because it was just a really deep brown. Rarely will you find black in art. I mean, like, you can use black, but it's just so dark sometimes that it just that sounds crazy, but it is. Black in art is almost too dark, and it just makes it look kind of uncanny. So a lot of times it's just a really deep color instead of black. So that's pretty much what I used for the darkest parts of her face, like the nose, and I want to say under her chin, and then inevitably her hair. Something that I've been doing in my art recently is kind of like final touches before the final touches, if that makes sense. So basically what I'm doing here is, in rendering the nose, I just kind of go in and push it with a deeper value. And I noticed that when I add a deeper value into the picture, it needs to show up in more than just one place, because your eyes are going to immediately go to where that dark color is. So if I added the dark color under her neck, I'm also going to add it around her eyes and in her nose and in her ears, just to give the photo a more balanced look. Now y'all, I'm talking like I'm an expert, but really if you just take a look at my repertoire, your girl ain't got much to her name, but like, when you watch so many videos, it's easier, I guess, said than done. Something that I also feel like improved my digital portraits and allowed me to create these two drawings from something like what I was doing before is, I guess, shape language, if that's what it's called. I really wanted to push the, you know, planes of the face. I guess that's what I can say. A lot of the times if you blur those, it can look a bit weird. So I find that in making it more apparent in whether the jawline is super sharp or super soft, or like the eyes have a very distinct like curve to them, just making sure that shows up, I think helps with portraits a lot. Even in the highlights, like, I really love adding the circle highlights or the heart highlights, the square highlights. I find that in having those shapes, it really makes the art unique, yes, and helps it pop as well. I'm not that great when it comes to hair either. I know, like, what am I good at? But what I've been doing recently is just laying down colors and, like I said before, and overall shape language. So after looking at a bunch of other artists I really like, I realized where I was going wrong. So after adding this super dark color, I then went in with another lighter color and added the highlights in chunks, or the lighter color here in chunks. This is just easier on the eye than just my flat coloring that I usually do, and it kind of makes it look a bit more finished than it actually is. And overall, I think it just looks better like than what I was doing before, where it just was like flat color, nothing, just plain. And with this image specifically, I would say like the whole top of her head was pretty much brown, but I did go in and take some artistic liberties and kind of just add the chunks sporadically around her head and made some of them in the middle darker themselves, instead of just doing like light at the top, dark at the bottom, even though I probably should have done that. But yeah, I'm just kind of stubborn when it comes to my art and just be doing what I want without any sort of thinking. But obviously you would try to follow your reference as closely as possible. Then after creating those lighter chunks, I then went in with the darker color and just kind of added jagged edges to give it like a more hair effect. And the last thing I did for the hair was using the lasso tool, just created some highlights. I just lassoed a big shape, added in like this super grayish color for like the highlights of the hair, and did that around her entire head. So the final thing that I did, at least the final thing I can remember that I did, is add the highlights of the face. Now this is kind of the same thing I was talking about before with like final touches before the final touches, where you kind of really push the values. And I used to never do that. I would never do this before and my art would look really flat, but now that I've started doing that and being like, you know what else can I do? Step back from it, maybe like a few hours later come back and be like, oh, what else can I change? And that has helped me push my art, in my opinion, my digital art personally, to a whole different level. So definitely try taking a step back for not even like a day, but maybe just like a couple hours, and then come back and see what else you can add. This sketch took me about 2 hours, which I'm really happy about because that's pretty standard for me at this point, and I'm glad I was able to create something like this in 2 hours, because usually before 2 hours I would get like nothing done. So yeah, I'm really happy with it. And if you want to see a closer look of this, just go to my Instagram, pop over there, ask Scrappy, add Jordan Lee, whatever you look up, they'll both show up. And yeah, let me know what you think. That was a bit of a doozy, but honestly, it didn't take me that long. Now that digital portrait specifically, I'm really happy with the way it turned out. I don't know if that's going to be like a constant style, but I like the way that portrait specifically turned out. I really did learn a lot from my collab that I did, I want to say a week and a half ago. So go check that out if you haven't already. If this video was helpful for you, please let me know down in the comments. Keep making these videos because I just see those are the ones that people want to see, so I'm obviously going to keep making them. All of my social medias and my links will be down in the description. And if there's anything else you want to know, just comment and I'll reply back to you. That being said, I'll see you guys in the next one.